Everything all right last night?
We are live on YouTube.
The proper amount?
Mr. Conover, we are live on YouTube.
All right, thank you. Welcome everyone to the Public Works Committee meeting. Kevin, which one would you like to start with, Parks and Rec?
No, I think we're going to do DPW and solid waste, and then we'll go into Parks and Rec last today, if you don't mind.
No, I don't mind without objection. We'll start with solid waste. Very good. What do we have in front of us?
You have the minute. Ron, we have to accept the minutes from the last meeting.
Oh, apologies. Chair will entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the previous meeting. Ms. Hogan on the motion. Is there a second?
Yeah.
Mr. Bruno on the second. Thank you, Mr. Bruno. Ready for the question? All those in favor of approving the previous minutes signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. All right, now let's move forward. Thank you, Kevin.
Okay, so I think I was going to start with DPW first and then move into solid waste. So
Okay, that's fine.
for the DPW agenda, first three things we have on the agenda are notice to fill positions. I have a heavy equipment operator and then 2 light positions that are open right now. My heavy equipment operator actually went to running his own business, and my light also went to running his own business up in Warrensburg in a barber shop, and my other light was promoted. So this is to backfill all these positions.
All right. Any questions? Why don't we bring this to the, we already have discussion? We haven't brought it forward? All right,
No.
Ms. Hogan, thank you. Second.
Supervisor Merlino seconds.
Hey, Gene, thank you, Gene. All right, now we can open the discussion. Questions for Mr. Hajos regarding these positions? What's the pleasure of the committee? Do you want to handle them individually, collectively?
Let's move 1 through 3.
Was that Ms. Hogan? Approval 1 through 3? Thank you. Is there a second on that?
Supervisor Merlino.
Mr. Merlino, thank you, Gene. Further discussion? Are we ready for the question? All those in favor of approving requests 1 through 3 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Item 4. What do we have here on item 4?
This is a resolution to authorize the superintendent of public works to execute agreements and memorandums of understandings between Warren County DPW and Warren County Soil and Water. DPW and Soil and Water typically engage in a lot of conservation projects that are affiliated with county roads. And what we were doing before was bringing each agreement with Soil and Water to committee. We'd rather just move forward with me being able to sign along with Jim Liebram on each of the projects we do. Typically, these projects don't cost us money. Our labor is typically acts as an in-kind service to these projects, but they're great projects that that Soil and Water brings forward to us. They ask us if we, typically it's most of the time, and Jim's here as well, it's stormwater type projects along our roadways. So again, this would authorize the superintendent of public works to execute the agreements or the MOUs with Warren County Soil and Water.
I'll move it.
Moved by Mr. Garrity, second.
Supervisor Merlino. I think it's
Gene Merlino on the second. Discussion? I just want to say, Soil and Water, great organization, provides great service to the county, to the towns. They're a real asset.
Mr. Chairman,
Ms. Hogan.
Jim Liebram's here in the committee room.
Yes. Jim, you want to walk to the microphone for a second so people can see you?
Hello, Mr. Chairman and Board. Thanks for having me here today. I'm here for another mission afterwards, as Kevin knows, but in case you don't know me, at least you will recognize me. And if you have any questions, I second what Kevin says. I think that we line up projects generally when we go into a grant application or funding sources, we talk to DPW and basically look for priorities that they have. Those of you who are in the town supervisors know that's basically how we work with the other municipalities. And I'm a county taxpayer, so we keep an eye on everything like that. So if anybody has any questions, feel free to let me know.
Thanks, Jim.
Thank you.
I'm going to regret it, but yes. Okay, thank you, Jim. Are we ready to move the question? All those in favor of the resolution signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. Thank you, everyone. What do you want to discuss next, Kevin?
Under number 4 for our discussion items, we have 2 different things. The first one is road and bridge construction projects, and the second is MS4, which I will turn over to Jim. But as far as road and bridge construction projects, the town of Stony Creek will notice today, as well as the town of Queensbury, road construction projects have started for the year. Based on what we have met with the or gone over the construction projects with our contractors, we probably expect to be by June, at least with the county road projects, to be completed with all of our paving, most likely by the end of June. Some of them may extend, and it all is dependent upon weather. The first bridge project we have coming up for this year, of course, is 13th Lake Road. That one is to be started probably end of May, beginning of June. We're just waiting for DOT concurrence on the awards for that project. And then throughout the year, it'll be Palisades Road, probably later this year, as well as Oxbow Moon Hill in Queensbury, and Call Street, East River Drive in Lake Luzerne. Those are all federal aid projects, and they'll be starting throughout the summer. Next item I have, sorry.
Go right ahead.
The next item I have on there is the MS4 report, and I will turn that over to Jim Liebram.
All right. Jim?
All right, thank you again. It is the time of year that we've developed the Warren County MS4 Municipal Separate Storm Sewer System Annual Report. It is about a 55-page document of a specific area of the county that includes county roads, facilities, so buildings, parking lots, things of that nature. Within the towns of Queensbury, Lake George, and I don't think there's any other infrastructure in the other MS4 areas. So basically, there is what's called the Stormwater Management Plan. That will be when there's a new MS4 permit issued by the state this year. We'll have to revamp that, but it's basically a catalog of what the county needs to do to stay within the permit requirements from the DEC/EPA. And it deals with stormwater. It doesn't deal with any sewer systems or anything like that. It's non-point source pollution. So the draft report will be available at the county's website, at our website. There's a copy, hard copy here at the clerk's office, at our office, and there will be at DPW. The deadline to submit comments is May 12th at 3 p.m. All this is on the cover letter. That's part of the report. This past year was a little challenging to meet everything, get everything done, but it looks like everything did get completed. We actually did have a stream cleanup, socially distanced stream cleanup, but it worked out. And I would encourage any of you who have not taken a look at the stormwater management plan, also known as the SWAMP, to take a look at that and take a look at the annual report. And if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to get them back to me. So most of the county is not in the MS4 area, but the maps, the boundary maps are available at the county website and at our website as well. So I don't know if Kevin has any questions or comments.
I do not.
Does anyone have any questions or comments for Jim? There being none, Jim, thank you for being here today.
Thank you.
What's next, Kevin?
I believe we'll move in. Well, as far as DPW, I think that's complete for DPW.
We want to on the privilege of the floor, do we want to turn to Don? Don, have you received any YouTube comments or questions? I don't hear anything. So, yeah, let's move right into the next agenda item.
So the next agenda will be the solid waste and recycling agenda. The first action agenda item I have on there is the approval of the waste hauling permits. This is to approve the waste hauling permits that I brought a couple months ago. I had sent them out to all the supervisors. I received no comments back. I worked with the county attorney's office, actually with Mr. Twilliger, to go through those to make sure that there wasn't anything else that was needed in those permits. We finalized them as of last week, and I provided, Amanda, do you get the most up-to-date ones that I sent out yesterday? Does everybody have those or no?
I believe so.
Okay. So the most up-to-date permit requirements are as part of your packet, and this will be the permits that each solid waste company will fill out for hauling permits. Some of the things we change is, you know, the truck insurance, I think that Bob and I talked about, as well as their reporting requirements. Originally, we had annual reporting requirements for them as part of this permit process, but we're going to bump that up to quarterly reporting so we can get a better feel of the information that they're providing to us. As part of this permit, the first truck for any hauling company will be $200, and then each additional vehicle will be $100 after that.
All right, let's bring this forward for consideration. I'll ask one more time, anyone wishing to bring this permit system forward for consideration? For discussion?
I'll do that. Supervisor Merlino.
I'll second.
Mr. Garrity on the second, thank you. Discussion.
Yeah.
Kevin, one of the big concerns I have on this is that the small hauler, you know, the one that picks up at some of the subdivisions and takes it up to the transfer station. And now this permitting system, are they going to be able to access this online? We're going to make it as easy as possible.
Well, I'll answer your first question. As far as the, you know, it's a per truck basis. So if it's a small company, you know, it's $200 for their first truck. If it's one of the larger companies, they're going to pay $100 each additional truck on top of that. As far as being able to access this, we're going to set up a website where they can get in, they can download this information, submit it to us. I'm going to work with IT as far as their reporting requirements to see if they can do it right online so that they can fill in the information and it gets automatically sent, you know, to us at the county.
I think that would be very helpful, very helpful. And are you going to have a contact number for questions, answers, that sort of thing?
In the permit that's in the packet, currently my contact information is on there and a phone number is on there. I hope that to be not my name, but the new solid waste recycling coordinator that we have a position out for right now. We're advertising that position, and I believe we've already gotten a couple of resumes in for that position.
All right. So it'll be that person's job to assist and answer any questions.
That's correct.
Any other questions for Kevin?
Supervisor Merlino.
Mr. Merlino?
Kevin, when do you think this program is going to be started? Are we going to do this starting 2022 or integrated into this year?
Yeah, I'm hoping to get it later this year to get everything onto the website and actually get the stickers printed that we're going to use. I'm thinking probably more towards September of this year. So we'll get the last quarter of this year for them reporting. But I'm thinking at the earliest, it's probably going to be September.
Okay, appreciate that. So we'll move forward with what we're doing right now. Well, no problem. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Garrity?
Yeah, Mike, have you had any feedback from any of the haulers? And I don't remember getting this, but if you emailed this to us, the permit?
Yeah, I had it for our last committee, and I believe I gave it to Amanda as well as part of, but if you don't have a copy, there's one as part of the package today.
Yeah.
If anybody has any more comments, I'd be, happy to take them.
But have you had any feedback?
Most of the haulers are used to this,
Okay.
because there's other counties that are already doing this. So most of the haulers that are around this area, they're experiencing the same things in other counties.
Okay.
They're charging, some of the other counties are charging more, some of the other counties are charging less. But they are used to this fee process for these permitting. Yep.
Good. Thanks.
Any feedback from the small haulers at all, Kevin?
No, none whatsoever.
I mean, that's where my concern primarily lies. I mean, I support the permit system. I don't think that's an egregious amount for the permit. I just want to make sure that we, keep it as clean and as straightforward and simple as possible. Yeah, Kevin?
Yeah, and I just wanted to add on is the bottom line with this is there was a local law passed in 1991 that required the county to do this. So that's why we're moving forward with it. And it's also part of our local solid waste management plan. And we're going to make this, I hope, as seamless as possible for any of the haulers.
Yeah. If you could just briefly amplify on it, our requirements with the state and the plan that was filed, and that this is part and parcel of a much bigger situation. I think that's important for the record.
Yeah, and I don't necessarily want to read the whole entire law, and it is part of your packet today. Let me see if I can get the gist of it for you. Basically, back in 1991, there was a local law to appropriate and reasonably limit on competition with respect to collecting, receiving, transporting, delivering, storing, processing, and disposing of solid waste generated, originated, or brought within Warren County. And no provision of this local law shall be interpreted as authorizing unfair competition. So the bottom line is we required back in 1991, based on regulations that were passed by the state and DEC, to get a little better handle on recycling as well as solid waste collection within the county. Back at that time, we created the MRF facility, which we got out of probably fairly quickly because it was a losing proposition for us, and that it was easier for us to hand it over to solid waste facilities, such as the Greenridge facility or Hiram Hollow, or even the burn plant, to take over some of this process. But the regulation stated that we need to get a better handle on solid waste within the county, and this permitting system was put in place really to not necessarily to charge people an arm and a leg to make any revenue for the county. It was really to be able to track or require them to report to the county, and that's what we've been lacking. Is we're just not getting each of the towns report, but the private haulers that are picking up garbage day in and day out, solid waste in these neighborhoods, we're not getting that reporting from them. So this would give us a better handle on reporting with them, the reporting of what they're doing with solid waste within Warren County.
Any questions for Mr. Bruno?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just looking at the table of contents and going through this, I don't see local law number 2 nor the quarterly report form.
That, if quick answer, that will be added to this. It's actually going to be added as the appendix, or it'll be online when they go to download the permit form. I didn't include them in this, but local law number 3, which starts the permitting system of 1991, is in your packet today.
Thank you.
Yep.
And additionally, the fee schedule, it isn't in the table of contents. I just wondered where that's.
I believe the fee schedule for this was right up front within the.
It's in the app where you write your letter to the applicant.
Yeah, it's in the very beginning of the waste hauler permit where I would sign the letter to send this out to them. It states it inside there.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome. Any other questions for Mr. Hajos? Are we ready for the question? All those in in favor of approving the waste hauling permitting requirements program signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Adopted. Thank you. What's item 2, Kevin? Request approval of the county local solid waste management plan. What do we have here?
So as you well all are aware, I submitted the local solid waste management plan back in, I want to say November of 2020. We received comments back from DEC in late January, early February. We addressed those comments and submitted it back to DEC, and the second page of the of this resolution, you'll see the letter we received from DEC approving our draft. So the next step for the county would be to approve the local solid waste management plan as part of 6 NYCRR 366 4.1, which is the adoption of the plan, and the county will implement and maintain a solid waste management system as described in the final plan, and the county will submit the biannual updates to the plan.
All right. Well, I'm just noticing, I just want to be careful here that on the, I see some items, it's from John Strow. I just wanted to make sure these get put into the record. Why were all provisions related to electronics recycling removed? The county has incorporated into this agreement its harassment policy and relevant provisions indicates that the town has reviewed that the policy in its entirety applied to town will indemnify the county for any losses it claims. Are you able to see these questions, Ms. Hajos?
I am. I'm not sure, and I'm trying to go through them right now, why were all the provisions related to electronic recycling removed? I'm not sure what Supervisor Strow is referring to. The local solid waste management plan has electronics recycling as part of the plan. That was one of the comments that we received from DEC, and we put it is back in the plan. So I'm not sure.
Okay. Maybe you could give him a meeting. He had to go to another meeting. Maybe you could give him a call just to see what his concern was. Anything? And can we move on to the other items quickly?
The county has incorporated into this agreement its harassment policy. I guess I've talked to the county attorney. I'm not sure if he's referring to the permit system or not. I guess I would look to County Attorney Terwilliger and ask him, do we need a harassment policy and a permit?
We usually, for the safety of the county, put that in every contract that we have. Any kind of agreement Warren County makes with another entity, whether it's a private business or a nonprofit, or even another government entity, we put that clause in there just as a protection for the county. Sometimes a lot of agreements with other governments might have mutual indemnification, so that if it's something that's caused by the fault of the other government, that government entity would indemnify Warren. If it was something caused by Warren County would indemnify that other government. But we often want that in almost every contract we have to protect Warren County. I can speak with Supervisor Strow on that. If he has questions about it, I'd be happy to do that.
I wish you would. And if we need to make a revision in that regard, just notify the committee, and if necessary, bring it back, bring the item back. Item 3.
Where neither party could previously assign its rights under the intermunicipal agreement without approval of the other, the county removed any limiting language for itself. I'm not sure what Supervisor Strow is referring to there. In what intermunicipal agreement? We're on the permits right now. So I'm not sure. That may be something else that County Attorney Terwilliger can reach out to Supervisor Strow and chat with him about that.
All right, and item 4.
In previous years, the county has the option of extending its transportation disposal service agreements by 1 additional year term. Under the current model, the county may opt to extend such agreements by 2 additional 1-year terms. I think Supervisor Strow is on the solid waste and recycling that the towns do, not not anything to do with these permits.
I agree.
And I'm not sure. I believe we've always seen the additional extensions of agreements with solid waste companies. I believe it's only been a year in the past, and we've even probably put it out every year because the most of the solid waste hauling companies or collection companies just don't want to honor the same, prices that they gave us similar to that. So we have the extension in there for 2 additional 1-year terms. My feeling is that we'll probably go back out to bid again because none of them will hold to the terms.
Okay. Well, suffice to say, you and the county attorney can contact Mr. Stroud just to chase this down. But I did want to make sure that since it was put on the chat, that it was presented to the committee. Do we have anything, Don? Do we have anything on YouTube relative to this matter?
Hi, Chairman Conover. No comments on YouTube right now.
Okay, thank you. What's next, Kevin?
That's all I have for solid waste. We'll move into Parks and Rec.
Oh, just a moment. Do you need an approval on the LSW MP, solid waste plan? Do you actually need an approval at this stage?
We do.
Okay. Chair, I'll entertain a motion relative to the solid waste management plan.
I'll move.
Was that Mr. Merlino?
Bruno.
Mr. Bruno, I apologize. I didn't see. And do we have a second? Ms. Hogan on the second. Any further discussion? I just would say this is a long time in coming, and I just want everyone to know that I view this management plan as a working document. As things evolve and as things change going forward, hopefully we'll keep the plan current. Hopefully our new staff person will provide much needed update and information to the plan, and items can come back to the committee to help us better manage this issue going forward. That's my hope in this process. Then are we ready for the question? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you. What's next, Kevin?
We'll move into the Parks and Rec agenda.
Sure.
I believe Tim Benway is on. Tim, are you there?
Yes, I am. I'm here.
You can go ahead and start the action agenda items.
Okay, the very first one I have is to amend the county budget for receipt of a donation from Judge Courtney Hall. He actually donated $1,000. We'd like to put it into equipment fund. We're going to try to eradicate an algae bloom in our pond up yonder, so they want to put that in equipment.
Do you need approval?
Fine. Do we need approval on that, Kevin?
Yes.
I'll move.
Move forward by Mr. Garrity, second by Mr. Merlino. Thank you. Further discussion? Deals with the receipt of a donation. Are we ready for the question? All those in favor of the request signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Kevin, I would hope that you or Amanda or somebody would send a letter. Thank you.
We will.
On behalf of the county. What's the next item?
Next item I have is actually we're going to amend the contract for trail maintenance and equipment. We've actually worked with the snowmobile clubs on a periodic basis over the last 3 months to come up with a guideline for them to use to report back to us with their receipts for funding they receive of the $27,000. So we put together on page 2 of your package, you'll see that all the items that we've worked on and kind of went over and listened to their comments. Kevin and I worked on this last meeting, and this is the final draft that we came up for your approval. In other words, it spells out exactly what they can do and what they cannot do for reimbursement.
Okay, let's bring this forward for discussion. Kevin, do you want to speak before we bring it to the table or after?
You can bring it to the table first.
Okay, can we have a motion to bring this forward for consideration?
Supervisor Merlino, I will.
Mr. Merlino on the motion, Mr. Garrity on the second. Kevin, what were you going to say?
I just wanted to add on to kind of what Tim said. So the snowmobile clubs in their current agreement, it says snowmobile trail maintenance and development, but it didn't really spell out in those agreements what trail maintenance involved. Some of the things that came back through from them last year was, fuel use, I think fuel for their storage buildings, and the auditor didn't believe that that was necessarily trail maintenance. So we're trying to spell it out because it's all part of trail maintenance. It may not be that they're storing their groomer in a building and that the heat for the building should be trail maintenance, but they need to keep the groomers warm to be able to use them. They have diesel fuel. So it still is part of the trail maintenance. So we kind of clarified, as Tim said, number one, some of the things that they can and can't submit for reimbursement to the county. But number two is we also work with the auditor as far as how they wanted or how she wanted to receive the information, or what we needed to see from each one of the clubs. It was a bank statement saying they're paying $900 a month, but it didn't say what the $900 a month was. Well, it's for their groomer. So we needed a little bit more explanation from them. So that's what we're requiring now. So this is just to update the existing agreements, kind of to spell out a little more what involves their trail maintenance and what they can submit for reimbursement, and then what backup items they need when they submit for the reimbursements.
I think I know you've been working very diligently with the club or clubs regarding this, Kevin, and you and your people putting a lot of time in. And I think that's important because these are volunteers. They do a great service for the county. And I think trying to keep it clear and simple going forward, I think that's very important. So that we don't paint ourselves into a corner financially. So kudos to you and your staff. I know you've been working diligently on this. Any further questions?
I have a question, Ron.
Yeah, go ahead, Kevin.
What's TME stand for?
Trail maintenance entity.
Trail maintenance entity.
Okay, so you say on general expenditures, utility bills, fuel for storage buildings, and then over on number 3, not eligible, you got fuel and lubricants. I know one is a state grant and one's, it's kind of confusing. Maybe they know, right? Is that not confusing to anybody?
Tim, do you want me to touch base on this or?
Your general expenses, fuel and storage for building. Groomer fuel is not an expense allowed by us because it's already in the state and grant program. It's built into their flat rate for all repairs. It's basically their money up forward. So what they were saying, the state does not allow for their storage buildings or any other equipment to be a reimbursement factor. So we said, okay, we know you're not allowed for grooming, but you need fuel for your buildings. That's where that's stated. Does that answer your question or no?
Well, it's as clear as mud to me, but yes.
I'm sorry.
And it's clear as mud, but I think I understand it.
Mr. Hajos?
Just real quick, as Tim, through the New York State Grant Aid program, Tim receives all the paperwork from the clubs to basically say what they're submitting for reimbursement for the Grant Aid program. So Tim has to comb through all that paperwork and say, okay, they're submitting for this, that, and the other thing. If they're not getting reimbursed by the state, then there's some of those items that could be reimbursed by us. Tim sees both submittals. So he sees what they're submitting for the Grant Aid program, and he also sees what they're submitting for the county. So if Tim sees that they're putting in, say, a chainsaw under the state Grant Aid program and then putting it in for our program, he cuts it out of one of the programs. So he stays on top of that. He's very good at it.
Yeah, what we don't want is we don't want any of the clubs going out and spending money that they think they're going to get reimbursed for, and then they don't get reimbursed. So I think that's why we need to really be helpful here and spell it out as best we can, so that they have confidence that what they're expending resources on are going to be reimbursed. And I think that this is kind of a transition period, isn't it, Kevin, where some of this was moved over to the county?
Yes.
Yeah, this is the first year of that. Yep.
Okay. Yeah. So, any other questions?
Just a comment, Mr. Chairman.
Sure, Craig, go right ahead.
Thanks. Thanks to Kevin and to Tim for pulling this together. Also, thanks to Carla, our auditor, for being able to dive right into what our eligible county expenses and whatnot. We have somebody really working hard down there to keep track of all of our budget items and contracts. She deserves a lot of credit on that, but big credit to Tim and Kevin for going out to all the clubs, getting their stakeholder input on all of this. I think it's very workable. Thank you.
You're welcome. And thank you for those remarks.
Thank you.
Any other comments?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, this is Supervisor Thomas.
Sure, go ahead, Frank.
I'd like to echo what Greg said. I received quite a few phone calls about this whole situation, and I'm glad to see that hopefully it's being worked out. And thank you to everybody for their hard work.
Yeah, we certainly, Frank, I couldn't agree more. I mean, we certainly want to be supportive of our clubs and our volunteers and what they do. It's really a very much a labor of love on their part. And no, we need to make this as crystal clear as possible so that, again, we don't find ourselves in a situation where clubs expend dollars expecting to be reimbursed and then somebody tells them that it's ineligible. That we just simply cannot have. All right, then, are we ready for the question? All those in favor of the clarification of trail maintenance and the amendment on the agreement signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carried. What's next?
I just included the stocking report to date so far. I mean, this year has been very early for us according to weather and water conditions. So we're better than 2/3 stocked.
Wow.
Unfortunately, this year that both children's fishing derbies were canceled, but we stocked those ponds anyways. So Crandall Park received their fish, Mill Pond and Brant Lake received their fish, and will receive fish again next year if there is a derby. So to date, we're approximately 2/3 done.
Excellent. That is early, I think.
Very early, sir. Very early.
Yeah. I just want to say, our hatchery and stocking program is one of the most under-recognized programs that we have. It's just a tremendous thing that we have and we do through the hatchery and the stocking program. And to see all of the different places to get stocked and to see these young people in these fishing derbies and whatever, it's just a marvelous thing. And Kevin, to you and your staff and everyone involved in the hatchery program and the stocking program, really the tremendous job being done there.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jeff Fingley does a wonderful job.
Andrea.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to say great collaboration, guys, too, with GIS on the map that showed where things had been stocked. That was really fun. So well done there.
Right.
Thank you.
We didn't have that. Last year we had some issue with the stock. Was it a blight or something? Some infection or something? We didn't have that.
Rome had zebra mussels.
Wow.
And they weren't allowed to put their fish in local waters.
Uh-huh.
And that's happening again this year.
Okay. Anything else, Kevin? The last thing we have on discussion items is I received an email. I think this is the second time I received an email in probably the past couple months. And I didn't necessarily bring it to committee yet because I wanted to kind of look over it myself. We're getting a request to use electric scooters or electric bicycles on the bike path. I kind of did some research. There's actually a law that was passed last year that allows people, it was passed in April of 2020, that allows people to operate bicycles with electrical assist on some streets and highways in New York State. And then as of August 2nd, this also allowed electric scooters to operate on some streets and highways in New York State. Most of these, as I did the research, there's 3 different types of electric bikes. There's what they call like class 1, class 2, and class 3. Your class 1, the electric portion of the bike is operated when you pedal it. Class 2, they actually have a throttle on them, but they get no faster than 20 miles per hour. When they reach 20 miles per hour, they typically, the power cuts out on it and they have to go back to pedaling. The class 3 is back to a pedaling type of bike with the electric assist. But currently, those type of bikes are up to 28 miles per hour. The law is being looked at or changed so that that they reduce that down to 25 miles per hour. We have never, I'm not saying it doesn't happen, we do not allow motorized vehicles to be on the bike path except for a very small portion of the bike path, which is from Magic Forest to Lake George. And that's typically for the winter months for snowmobilers. The remainder of the bike path and in the summer, there's no motorized vehicles allowed. Tim has had requests from individuals who may have a disability to have some type of electric vehicle on the bike path. We allow individual requests like that. Typically, maybe a wheelchair or something like that we wouldn't hinder them or not allow them to come on there. But I'm getting the request to see if the county would allow these type of motor vehicles on the bike path. The state has a lot of rules to go along with theirs. Their rules run anywhere from being in a single file, not riding side by side. There's not a lot of bike paths throughout New York State, multi-use paths that have allowed them on them. I'm not sure that we want to. I'm sure there's a whole slew of things that Robert can fill us in on liability and such as well. But I wanted to bring the discussion to the committee and to see how the committee feels and if there's any questions that they can ask me regarding these.
Any comments or questions for Kevin? I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but this trail, when it was created along adjacent properties, there was, I'm sure, discussion of what was going to be permitted and what was not going to be permitted. I seem to remember some of that surfacing relative to that section on snowmobiles as an example. But it was a very lengthy public process, was it not, Kevin? In terms of the development of the trail.
It was, and I can tell you, I mean, because it's even before probably Bill Lamey's time. I think most of it dealt with Fred Austin when he was here, and Pat Beeland, who was the director of Parks and Rec at the time, and there was a lot of agreements. I guess I want to say a lot of handshaking that went up and down that corridor, right. That they would not allow motorized vehicles on that bike path.
Mr. Chairman, it's Andrea. I have a question.
Yes, Andrea.
Kevin, in your research on the few paths that did allow electronic assisted bikes, did you come across what their rationale was?
Not necessarily. I think they just looked at it, and I don't necessarily think that they had anything in place, Supervisor Hogan, such as we do, that there is no motorized vehicles on their path. I don't think they had those stipulations, so that's where they had ended up allowing it. Again, it's all dependent upon, what type of bike it is, what they're going to allow use. As I said, the 3 classes of bikes, I'm not sure I'd want anybody over 20 miles per hour on the bike path anyways. Especially, typically someone who's pedaling a bike and they're pedaling a bike, let's say on West Mountain Road or Corinth Road or Main Street, they're typically what they refer to as like your Class A bike riders who they're not fearful of cars. They know how to ride a bike. You're kind of class B and C bike riders, or typically your families. And your families you're not going to find on West Mountain Road. Your families you're not going to find on Corinth Road. Those are the type that you're going to find on the bike path. And as we all know, kids will meander back and forth down a bike path, and to have somebody on an electric bike or electric scooter, traveling upwards of 20 miles per hour, and a kid swerves out in front of them, I'm just not sure that's where we want to go. And again, there were agreements reached way back when that said that, there should be no motorized vehicles on the bike path. Now, in my time here, and I think it was back in 2008, 2009, the question came up is, do we allow the snowmobilers? They did allow that for the winter months. They under strict guidelines, they can't ride on the path when there's very little snow because they'll ruin the path. They have to kind of stay to one side because there are people who still cross-country ski or even walk along the bike path. That are some of the rules that we put in place. But again, there are private residents that some of that bike path crosses, and Tim can verify that, is that it was an agreement not to have any motorized vehicles out there. Now, I will tell you that I was out by Aldi's the other day on the bike path, and come flying by me, that's kind of spooked me, was an electric scooter, and they were probably traveling 15 to 20 miles per hour. And we have signs all up and down the path that there should be no motorized vehicles.
Mr. Leggett, Supervisor Leggett.
No, thank you, Chairman. What if this went off to the Warren County Safe and Quality Bicycling Committee for their review and any recommendations that they may have? That, from my experience, a lot of the assisted bikes are used by older folks. And sometimes you have couples where one of them is more able to just pedal. The other one has an electrical assist bicycle to be able to help keep up. We want to be able to encourage people getting out and about, and we also want to be safe on these things. So see what maybe that group that's very intimate with bicycling culture, what they think.
I think that's an excellent suggestion. Mr. Garrity?
Well, I was just going to say, if it gets out of hand, you could ask the sheriff's department to send their bike patrol out. Just calm it down a little bit. But,
Mr. McGowan?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a great discussion. Now, I live off of Birdsill Road, which is right up here, and it's part of the bike path that brings you up toward Glen Lake. And I drive past all sorts of different people, and it's a little bit of an incline there, and I a lot of times I drive slow, and I always sometimes I even roll down the window and say, hey, grab hold of the bumper, I'll pull you up. But I've seen all sorts of families and that go up there, but I also see a lot of suited bicyclists with the helmets and this and that, and I can pretty much guarantee you the way they drive on Birdsill, they're out there for the exercise, and I'm sure they're buzzing over 20 miles an hour on the bike path. Now, I also have a brother-in-law that sells one of these high-end bikes, different styles. A lot of it he goes toward municipalities for the police department patrols. And I have to say that I've actually ridden them. And it's been the first time I've been on a bike in 20 years. And I actually enjoyed it because it wasn't one of those, oh, my gosh, here comes a hill. It's, oh, hey. Let's, and it was an enjoyment. Not that I was out there to do top speed, but to get out there. I really agree with Craig that we need to reach this out. I don't think limiting it, unfortunately, maybe we need to post a speed limit sign. I mean, it's kind of amazing of the people out there. If you're going to ride fast on a bike, all right, you don't take the bike path. But then a lot of people will take the bike path because they don't want to deal with the cars. So, it really gets down to the people on the bike trail of being respected for the other people. If it's a busy day out there and a lot of children, you don't race back and forth, but a lot of people do it as a time trial. But like I said, I live right off of Birdsville Road, and the thousands of bikes that I see, and it really last year was a huge amount of people, and it really is amazing at some of the disrespectful bikers that just feel that they own the road, and I always like being on my motorcycle coming up behind those people because you just crack that throttle a little and it wakes them up. But no, I think it's something that we need to look into. I don't consider them, and I've had my brother-in-law look into them as a motorized because it is an assist. But Kevin did bring up, there are 3 different styles, and I have to say the other day, I want to say it was yesterday morning. I was coming here and I hear this a 2-stroker and the kid with the helmet on the bike. And I said, I hope he's not going to the bike trail because that is an obnoxious motorized vehicle that shouldn't be on the trail. But thank you.
You're welcome. Mr. Hajos?
I agree with Supervisor Leggett. I think that we reach out to, and I apologize, it's not Warren County Safe Quality and Biking Organization anymore. The name escapes me. I think it's Adirondack Bicyclists or something like that. I believe, we should reach out to them. As I said earlier, I did some research and I don't want to hit on a lot of it, but there's a outfit called Bike Terrytown, and they basically put out a report last year about major problems for e-bikers in New York. There's a lot of good information in there as, similar bikes, different use, banned from most roads because people who wouldn't be allowed on e-bikes on streets with speed limits over 30 miles per hour, that limits a lot of roads. Hills become, kind of what they consider like speed traps. Folks can't operate a class 1 or class 2 bikes over 20 miles per hour. Going downhill will require people to ride brakes. They require you to ride single file only. They require you to know sidewalks. Yielding, as Tim and I were speaking about, Tim, correct me if I'm wrong, but even bicyclists that come up to any of our crossings right now typically should be getting off their bikes, dismounting, and walking across. I don't think that most of them do that either. Age limits, e-bike riders would have to be at least 16 years old. These are just some of the things that were put as part of this. They'll even have, they'll do, sobriety checks with someone who thinks that they may be on the influence on a bicyclist. There's a lot of good information on that site, but I think Supervisor Leggett, maybe our next step is just to sit down with our biking organization of Warren County and maybe kind of go through it with them and get their thoughts on it. Maybe by the next committee, we can bring something back with them to discuss.
Yeah, this is for the first time in front of the committee, and I don't think anyone's expecting any, I would hope, not expecting any action today. Kevin, I think we need to know what commitments or promises were made when the trail was established. Mr. Bruno, Supervisor Bruno.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I agree with everything that Mr. Leggett, Mr. Hajos, and other people have said. Once you establish the criteria for operating or not operating on the bike path, motorized or otherwise, even the speed limit, then it becomes a public education effort. So just keep that in mind, please. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome. So I think the history, what was promised, I would see this, even if it were to be carried forward, this would be quite an involved public process. It would require public hearings. I'm not sure what deed restrictions, if any, are out there. I'm not sure about funding, what funding commitments were made when it's a very complicated business. So I think, Kevin, you've got this sized up correctly. Do your homework, go slow, so that we, also the standards, the trail's designed for a certain type of use, is it appropriate for another type of use? Some people mentioned signage. I don't know, maybe there are other issues relative to the design of the trail that we're not today aware of, but in any event, thank you for bringing it forward, and I'm sure there'll be a lot more discussion on this going forward. Anything else, Kevin?
Nothing more.
Nothing more. That concludes material brought to us by the department. Anything on YouTube, Don?
Hi, Chairman Conover. No, there is nothing on YouTube as of now.
Nothing on YouTube. Anything further from the committee? There being nothing, Chair will entertain a motion to adjourn. Mr. Garrity, Mr. Bruno on the second. All those in favor of adjourning signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.